move forward kind of a stuff. And in today's webinar, we are going to be speaking about a concept which is called as a scaled agile framework, which is also known as short form as acronym as SAFE, and give you a very high level overview of what is SAFE all about and what can be done. Okay, there is a person who is saying, is there a local number which I could use? No, there is no local number. It is not an audio call that we are doing. It's through the speaker of the, what I should say, the laptop that I'm speaking kind of a stuff. So there is no audio extra call or the extra number that we need to dial in. So let's continue and talk about the scaled agile framework, a concept that is there in the or is currently there in the market for, I would say, around about last couple of years, and it has been gaining a lot more momentum as we go forward. So I hope you can see these slides moving up and down. Please let me know. Did you see the slides moving up and down? All right, great. So what we are going to talk today is the foundation of the scaled agile framework and help you guys understand what does scaling mean and what is that so different in this particular concept of SAFE that makes it so interesting and attractive as we go forward. It's one thing that's very important for us to start appreciating and understanding is that when we started Agile or when we do Agile, it's important to understand that Agile was always thought to be for a single team, all situated in a particular small room, everyone there, everyone co-located, and all that kind of interesting stuff. Are you guys able to hear me? Yes, thank you. My apologies, a little disturbance on my side. So the idea what I was trying to highlight is that when we started Agile, the Agile was always done for a small team, all co-located. The customer was in the one place, the product owner, customer in one place, the development team in the same place, everyone together kind of a stuff. But we have to be very honest, and the practical part of the life is that not everyone is in the same location. Today, the reality of life is that your customers are located in a different location. You as a development team could be in a different location, and more importantly, there could be multiple teams who would be working on the same product or the same project at the same point in time. So, how does really Agile work in that kind of a situation? Because when we talk from a manifesto point of view, when we talk from a Agile principles point of view, these guys never thought that the reality of life would be that people would be spread across all multiple geographical locations, and how would we get the job done? And that is where the interesting part of the theory comes out, that we need to start understanding and appreciating that how does SAFE really help us. Now, what we are trying, and I'm going to explain you this entire diagram and help you along, understand all of them. But if you need more data, you can go to this particular website, which is called scaleagileframework.com. And it is a framework, and what we are trying to highlight is it's a proven publicly facing framework for applying lean and agile practices at an enterprise level. What we are trying to highlight is that when you did Agile or when we are doing Agile right now, specifically with concepts like Scrum and other things, we are all co-located doing everything together in one place. But when you have to work with multiple teams, when you have to work with multiple product owners, when you have to work with teams which are spread geographically across the globe, then how do we do things? And that is where SAFE as a concept really makes a lot of difference at an enterprise level. Now, the idea of the SAFE is that SAFE is not only the Agile, but it is using a couple of other concepts also very heavily, specifically things like Lean, specifically things like Kanban, and agile practices, all of them are all integrated very heavily together, and this is how this entire concept works. So I'm going to be explaining you this diagram as we move forward in the system as we talk about. Now, one of the other things that you and I need to really think about is that SAFe really talks about the four core values of SAFe is the program execution, alignment of different elements, core quality and transparency in the entire operations or in the entire system. The idea is that SAFe focuses on synchronizing elements, collaboration and delivery for large number of teams. And when we talk of large number of teams, we are talking minimum of 5 teams to a maximum of 12 teams all put together. So basically about 50 people to 125 people can be working on the same project in different silos, in different elements, and all started to deliver on this particular project. So we are going to talk more about it as we go forward within this particular system. So moving on. Now that's the big picture, what we call the big picture. And SAFe talks at 3 levels. SAFe talks at a portfolio level, SAFe talks at a program level, and SAFe talks at a team level. Now, if you see right at the bottom of the screen, you will typically see normally what you and I have always done on the agile products or in the agile development. And basically what you are looking there is a product owner, there is a scrum master, there is a development team and all that kind of stuff. You can see certain, silo things which are blue and red color. Those are your team backlogs or product backlogs at a team level and so on and so forth. And each of them is trying to deliver something at a regular interval of 2 weeks to 4 weeks, whatever the case may be. So the bottom portion of the entire story that you are seeing is the real agile that you and I typically do on a daily basis. Just above that particular element, you are able to see a different diagram which talks about agile release train. There is something called DevOps, system architect, RTE, and there are a lot of other things, release management, product management, system team, program epics. And you will also notice something very interesting which is called the program backlog. This is at a program level. Now, it is important to start distinguishing between the bottom portion and the middle portion. In the bottom portion, we deal with stories that fit into a sprint or fit into an iteration. Whereas in the middle portion, we are talking of features that will fit into a release. A feature could be broken down into multiple stories, and multiple stories could be then gathered and combined to do a sprint or do a release as what you and I would typically talk about. So basically now at the 2 levels, you are talking one at a program level and one at a team level. The team level is a normal agile that you and I typically do, and at a program level we'll talk about each of these rules and what they do and how they really work out. Now right at the top you will see something called as a portfolio management or the portfolio vision. This is at a senior management level, at a very senior management level, and talking about the future of the organization, the vision, the objectives. We are talking of some strategic elements, strategic themes that the organization needs to take care and needs to evolve as it goes down. So what we are trying to connect in this entire big picture is that how from the portfolio you will move to a program, and how from a program you will actually move to a project and then develop and synchronize all 3 of them as we go forward. Now, one of the important concepts within this entire diagram is the center portion that you see, and there is a train that you could see which is called as the agile release train. Now that's the concept that we are going to focus heavily and help you understand that how does SAFe combine all of this, how do we create something called as ART, which is Agile Release Train, and what really happens in all those environments. We'll talk as we go forward. So I'm going to break down into each of these elements and talk pretty heavily about each of these elements as we go forward. But right now I'm going to move. Now do remember Scrum, SAFe uses Scrum and XP together. Scrum from a project management point of view and XP, which is extreme programming, from an engineering practice point of view. Now typically you and I, whenever we do a sprint or an iteration, at the end of the iteration you will have a sprint review or a sprint demo or an iteration review, iteration demo, whatever you call it, and we only talk at the sprint level only for a particular team. But when we talk at the SAFe level, not only we talk of the demo of the particular team, but we also talk something very interesting that you will see at the screen, something called as a system demo. So that means all the 5-10 teams which are working together on the same platform, on the same increment, on all the same backlogs, how do they combine? How does the features all come together? How do they combine? How do we have a system level information available? So right from the sprint level, which is talking of the sprint goals and other goals, we are also talking at a system level, which is basically the program objectives. So how do we see all of that as we move forward kind of stuff? So normally if you see in this entire graph or entire picture, you would typically notice everything that an agile will do, but there are a couple of things which are very interesting. One is in the center which says core quality, which is XP inspired practices. Remember, totally today what we do is that when we work on our environments, we typically either adopt Scrum or we either adopt XP. We have not seen many organizations adopting Scrum and XP together, and that is where, according to me, the meat of the situation would be that not only you have the Scrum practices adopted, but you also have the extreme programming practices adopted. Now, if you see on the right hand side, on the left hand side at the most bottom, you have the team backlog, which is nothing but the product backlog at a team level. Then you have the next is the sprint backlog, which is what we do at the end of the sprint planning meeting. We'll have a sprint backlog. Then in that cycle of 2 to 4 weeks, we will execute, which means we will develop the solutions to the stories that we have selected for the sprint. And at the end of the execution, you will typically give a demo. Now the demo will be of two levels. One demo is at the team level, what the team has picked up from the team backlog and produced and shown to the management and shown to all the stakeholders. The other is the system demo, where all the teams integrate everything together and then demonstrate how does the system work. So basically, in this entire concept, we are using two things. One is your normal Scrum practices, which will include everything like sprint planning and daily Scrum and sprint review, sprint retrospective. But we are also using the extreme programming practices to ensure that the core quality does not suffer. Remember, if you have a bad code, the product would not be good, and you would be having some number of issues as you go forward within the system. So moving on a little bit more ahead. Now, before I go, if you notice on this NFRs, which is against the team backlog, you will see a lot of blue color and there is a red color icon or a red color line also there. The red color line indicates in SAFe non-technical requirements, which you and I will typically call as non-functional requirements. So non-functional requirements are presented in the backlog in this picture through that red line that you got typically seen, and all the blue lines are typically the functional stories or the functional features as the case would be. So that is a distinction that I wanted to highlight and help all of you understand it. Now, why do we use SAFe? Why do we want to use SAFe? Basically, we want to use SAFe because of four things. It creates a better engagement of employees. There is a better employee satisfaction. People are ready to work. People participate. People understand the vision, so on and so forth. It's a faster time to market. So the industry has identified, and there are case studies which I'm going to show you, 30 to 75% faster time to market, 50% less defects, and 25% increase in productivity. And all of these are resulting into better business benefits to the organization and to the customer. And that is why SAFe becomes a very interesting element to adopt as you go forward, kind of a stuff. Now, these are some of the case studies that are available, and you can see the website scaledagileFramework.com/case studies. You can go to this particular website and download all these case studies. You can read it, you can download it, you can utilize it. Based on their copyright issues and other things, take care of that. But these are there available, helping you understand how different organizations have adopted right from waterfall to the enterprise agility at an enterprise level, how things have worked within the organization. And you will typically notice there are different kind of organizations available, like you will see there something like BMC software, or you will see organizations like John Deere. Now, John Deere is a tractor manufacturing company. It's a it manufactures a lot of tools and machinery for agriculture kind of a purpose. So you can see the kind of difference of various organizations that would have adopted SAFe as a concept and SAFe as a framework, and these organizations have achieved quite a bit of significant cost savings and market gains using SAFe. Basically, one very important point when we talk of SAFe is SAFe not only embarks upon the Scrum and the extreme programming, but it also uses heavily the concepts of Lean within the entire system. And what we are thinking is that within the SAFe, there needs to be four things that you need to talk about, or I should say 5 things. You have a goal, which is basically what is the kind of value that we are going to derive for the organization. You need to have respect for people. There needs to be a product development flow. I'm going to talk about it. And there needs to be a Kaizen, how we improve. And finally, there is a foundation, which is the leadership of the organization. And Lean is providing these all tools to us, all 5 of them, and trying to embed all these tools within the SAFe framework to enable SAFe to utilize the extreme programming, the Scrum and the Lean all together and provide the solutions and the effectiveness of the solutions to your customers. Now, when we talk, and let's pick up one of them, like the goal. The goal for any organization would be speed of delivery, quality of delivery, and value delivered to the business. Important point is that you need all three of them. You cannot say I will give you speed and quality but no value, or I'll give you quality and value but no speed. The customer would not be happy. So it is important that we try and understand that we need to have the shortest lead time. We need to produce the best quality and that provides value to people in society. And because of that, we will have most of the customer delight, lower cost, higher morale, and safety for all of us. So basically, the idea of lean is you need to have good speed, you need to have good quality, and you need to deliver business value to the customer. Having only two of the three will not help you. You need all three of them in order to get the job done, kind of a stuff. When we talk about respect for people, it's important. It's important to understand that we in the IT world, one of the major resource, or I should not use the word resource, one of the major, what I should say, the raw material for the working in the IT industry is the human capital, the human brain. And unless and until you respect for people, the respect for people is there, things really don't work out. So the idea is develop individuals, and individuals, because they build products, develop individual and teams, respect for individual, respect for the team, because they are the people who are actually going to build the products. Empower your team so that they can continuously improve. See, empowering is very important within the Agile framework, and unless and until you empower, things don't work out. Build partnership based on trust and mutual respect. Now, do remember, Agile focuses heavily on the concept called trust. And when you're scaling up Agile at an enterprise level, your trust also needs to scale up at an enterprise level. When you're a small team, we all can trust each other. But when 125 people are working together on the single product on the single day, then you need to have trust across elements and trust across people to get the job done. Remember, you need to equip your team with problem-solving tools so that they can form long-term relationship based on trust. So one of the elements is people do all the work. So unless and until there is a trust in the system, things do not improve as we go forward. Moving on, talking about Kaizen. Kaizen is all about, looking and identifying small and steady improvements. And within the Agile world, within the Scrum world, we have lovely tools like retrospective, root cause analysis. In Lean, we have VSM, value stream mapping. These are the tools that one should be using to try and identify what needs to be improved, how it can be improved. And remember, the improvement is not only at the team level, but the improvement has to be at the enterprise level. And every one of the organization, every part of the organization needs to be included in doing this particular improvement. The idea is we need to carefully study the data and implement the change rapidly. In an Agile, you don't have too much of breathing space. So the idea is that you and I need to be implementing our elements at a rapid pace. Coming down to the last element, which is the most important element, and this was done by Don Reddington, and he created the principles of product development. There are 8 principles been given. I'll just talk about a few of them. The first one is very important. Take an economic view. When you do a product backlog and when you are prioritizing a product backlog, how do you prioritize a product backlog? Normally most of the product backlogs are prioritized qualitatively on the relative ranking or the wish of the product owner, so on and so forth. But the very interesting part, what Don says is that you always need to take an economic view. What do we mean by economic view? You need to take multiple elements together. You need to understand what is the cost of development, what is the value of the development, what is the lead time to do the development, what is the risk involved in doing the development. And it is important to understand that when you have developed you need to develop an economic framework for decision making. Most of our decision making is very qualitative. Your decision making has to be basically on economic conditions. The idea is you need to sequence your jobs for maximum benefit. And if you cannot do that, and there is only one way that you can quantify, then you should always use the concept of the cost of delay. What do I mean by cost of delay? Let's say there are 2 stories available. Both of them are equally important. You need to be quantifying both the stories in terms of identifying that if I do not deliver the story A, what is the cost of delay to the business? Or if I do not deliver the story B, then what is the cost of delay to the business? Now do remember, both cannot have the equal cost. There will always be one slightly upper than the other kind of a stuff. And the one which has the higher cost of delay is the one that you and I should have prioritized. So there is a concept in the market which is called as weighted shortest job first. Weighted shortest job first. And that considers the cost of delay. So Don says that you should always take an economic view of understanding how things are going to happen, within your organization, what is really going to happen kind of a stuff. Let's talk about number 4, reduce batch sizes. What do we mean by reduce batch sizes? Do smaller increments, take less amount and deliver faster. One of the challenges that we always have is that we have huge amount of requirements which have been pumped into our system, and that increases the batch. You should always have smaller batches. Smaller batches reduce the cycle time. There is a faster feedback. It decreases the variability and the risk of the system. More important is a good infrastructure enables you to have good small batches. Smaller work you do, don't take large amount of pieces of work, take small pieces of work and deliver faster. More you deliver faster, the higher utilization will happen, the higher engagement with customer will happen, and this is the basic benefit that you and I should be looking at when we are developing elements in the system. It's important to understand that you should always fix dates and float the scope. Normally what we do is we have a fixed date, we have a fixed price and we have a fixed scope. No, you cannot have all three of them fixed. I would always recommend you always fix this date, say that on this date I'm going to deliver, but what are you going to deliver? The scope should be a floating variable. That is something important. It is important for the agile teams to know and show that the dates do matter. And when dates matter, I can guarantee you that the agile teams will meet their commitments faster. Remember, fix quality, not scope. Normally, we have always compromised with quality and we have not compromised with scope. I'm not saying compromise with scope. I'm saying negotiate the scope, prioritize the scope, and get that particular point up as you go forward. So remember, in agile, in safe, always fix the date and keep on floating the scope as the case may be kind of a stuff in your kind of an environment. It is important for us to understand that SAFe has roots into 4 elements. It is basically iterative and development, incremental development. It takes into account the lean and the system thinking. It takes into account the agile development approach. It takes into account the product development flow, which are these 8 principles that you are watching out here. And finally, it also takes into account your field experience at an enterprise level. Basically, if you notice, there are 5 elements: iterative and incremental development that leads into lean and system thinking, agile development, principles of product flow, and all of them take into account field experiences at an enterprise level. All of this put together, you have got a good, safe environment in your organization to start working. Look at the 8th principle: get feedback as soon as possible. Let's not wait. 2 weeks over, call the stakeholders, call the customer, have a feedback, understand what has to be done. Decentralized control. What I mean by the decentralized control is how the job is to be performed. Give the control, give the empowerment to the people, to the team at the local level. If everything is going to be centralized, I can guarantee you that life will become quite difficult for people as they move forward. It's important to understand, I talked about the basic framework of Agile. Now let's go into each of these sections and talk. As I was highlighting to you at the basic level, at the most bottom level, you have the Agile team. Basically, Agile team is one that creates valuable, fully tested software increment every 2 weeks. It is empowered, self-organizing. You guys have heard about all of this. But the interesting part is there are a couple of things which are important and interesting here. One is that the Agile teams operate under the program vision, architecture, and user experience guidance. I'll talk about this a little later in our discussions as we go forward. The good part of the SAFe program is that in SAFe, the agile teams are going to be using the Scrum part of the project management and the XP part of the technical or the engineering practices. And using both of them, we deliver value via the user stories. So user story as a concept has not changed. Scrum has not changed. XP has not changed. What has changed is that we have combined the Scrum and the XP both together under a program vision, an architecture vision, and a user experience guidance, and trying to create products and services that will help across the border, across the system, to deliver products and services by empowered, self-organizing, self-managing team. So that is basically the concept of SAFe at the most local level. As we talk about XP or extreme programming, it is important to understand that in SAFe, the focus is heavily on the code quality, and code quality can be done by few of these things as we have put together, like the agile architecture, the continuous integration, test me first, refactoring, pair programming, collective ownership. Remember, if you have a bad code, the code will not be scalable. The code will not help you. So please do not compromise on the core quality. The core quality will provide you predictability, integrity of your software development, development scalability, ability to innovate. If you are having bad code, it will stop your progress as you go forward. So the important point, the important focus of SAFE is not only on delivering, but delivering good code quality. So that is one of the major focuses of Agile as we go forward. Now I'm coming to the most interesting part of the story, which is scale to the program level. Now what is a program? Program is basically self-organizing, self-managing teams of Agile teams. Something that we call Scrum of Scrum, something very similar over here, which is called teams, managing teams of Agile teams. And all of this runs through a concept which is called as Agile Release Train. Basically for every, and within this particular Agile Release Train, you could have multiple teams working. The minimum set of team that is recommended is 5 teams. And the maximum recommended is 12 teams. So basically anywhere from 50 people to 125 people can actually start working on this particular stuff. The good part is that all of them have common sprint lengths and common estimation techniques. They have a lot of face-to-face release planning for collaboration, alignment, synchronization, and assessment. And delivery, value delivery is via features and benefits. Now remember, I'll just go back a little bit. Now if you notice, at the Agile level, the value delivery is by user stories. But that is at an Agile, at a team level. But when we talk at the program level, we are saying at the program level, the value delivery is by features and benefits and not by user stories. One feature may have multiple user stories, so all of them get done together and then we deliver something to the organization. Now something very important out here is, if I would like you to highlight and look at a couple of things here. In the center you will see something called as a product management. Now it is important to understand that every program, every Agile release train will have something called as a program backlog. This particular program backlog is owned by a group which is called the program management, or the product management, if I may use that word. That's the right word, the product management. So the product management owns a product backlog. It defines the features, it defines a potentially shippable increment, it defines the releases. It holds the pricing, it holds the value for pricing of the product at the final level to the market, ROI, and it collaborates with the architecture team to understand how the program or how the product or how the program will typically function. Going down from the program, you will have to go down, again I shift back, you will have to go down to the product owner. So basically the product management works with the product owner. The product owner owns the team backlog. Now it's very important for us to understand, in the normal scenario also a product owner will own the product backlog or the team backlog, but the product management owns the program backlog. So there are two backlogs that we are talking about. One is called the program backlog, the other is called the team backlog. The team backlog is at the team level, the program backlog is at the program level, which is managed by the product management. The product owner, which is there at the local level, as normally what we will do, owns the team backlog, defines the sprints, defines the stories, accepts the sprint increment, includes refactor, redesign, and all the other technical elements, whatever is required in the backlog item to get the job done. So that is basically one difference that you should start noticing, that the product management owns the teams or the program's backlog, whereas a product owner owns the team backlog per se. Just give me a minute. Now it is also important that within the sprint, within the SAFE, there needs to be a reason for us to do continuous alignment, because there are multiple teams going to be working on the single program backlog. So there needs to be at regular intervals collaboration, realignment that needs to happen. So from the program, from the sprint, you are trying to directly align with the program objectives to the sprint goals. All of that keeps on happening. Now let me talk about a few roles that are there or available within the system as we talk about, because this is something that the SAFE really the normal Agile would not talk about, but we need to talk about it as we go forward. So give me a couple of minutes here. Now one of the things which is very important is that within the program, because we are having multiple teams, you also need to do managing the dependencies. Now teams self-manage dependencies and resolve the program risk. Now if a team 1 has a dependency with team 2, then they will collaborate and do the job. Now there are a couple of ways that you could be doing it. One of the ways that you could be doing it is that the agile team member may visit the other team and try and understand what is their backlog, how does that work, what is coming next, what are the request adjustments that we need to do in order to ensure that we align together kind of a stuff. During the sprint planning, how do we request adjustments? What I mean by adjustment is how do we prioritize and deprioritize the user story so that the integration of the commonality will happen kind of a stuff. There could be daily stand-ups, follow up on the execution, how we are executing, how are they executing, and we exchange note on the daily stand-up kind of a stuff. So these are some of the things that one could be doing as we go forward kind of a stuff. Now, one thing that I want to really talk about is the product management team or the product or the program management team as we call it kind of a stuff. Now, one of the major jobs of the product management, if you notice in the entire slide, you will see that there are two things which are very interesting here. One is a vision and the second is a roadmap. Now, what is a vision? The vision by the product management is a vision for the future of this particular product. It may be expressed in a variety of format in terms of presentation, in terms of goals, in terms of ideas and all that kind of stuff. And based on that, using the vision, the product management will develop something called as a product roadmap. So basically it is a series of prioritized features with a planned release date. That these are the kind of features that we're going to do and these are the release dates along with the feature. Do you remember, though there is a number of releases that we will be doing within the SAFe, the commitment is only made for the next release and subsequent releases are only estimated whether it will go or it will happen or not happen. There may be no guarantee about it kind of a stuff. So what does the vision communicate? The vision communicates what are we doing with this product? What is the kind of solution that we are creating? What is the problem that it is going to solve? What are the features and benefits that this particular product is going to provide? Whom does it provide? And what is the performance that it will deliver? Now, when we talk of performance, we are talking of non-functional specification. So this is something that the vision should always communicate to the system or to the audience or to your stakeholders. Now, do you remember when the vision becomes interesting, people start aligning, people start getting into the system as they go forward. So that is one of the elements that you and I need to talk about as we go forward kind of a stuff. So do remember, just to summarize, product management team is a content authority for the entire release train or for the program backlog. So whatever goes in the program backlog is completely decided by this product management team, and the product management team decides what goes in the program backlog using the vision and using the roadmap. They are also the people who will be owning the roadmap. They are also the people who are defining this vision. They are also one of those guys who are continuously interacting with the customers and stakeholders for solution definition and feedback based on the demos and other things that we continuously keep on doing, helping them to understand what's happening within the system. So that is something that is the important point from a program management point of view as we move forward in this particular area. Now we also mentioned, now if you notice in this entire diagram, you will also see that there is quite a lot of arrows that are coming out, which are basically the releases that are going to be happening. Now what we are saying is that in a SAFe, because multiple teams are going to be working, there is one release management day or one release management event that happens where entire team gets together. And this should happen depending on what your release cycle would be. Let's say it is a quarter, so after every 12 weeks, for 2 days, this event needs to be conducted. Everyone needs to attend in person if possible. Do you again remember the product management owns all the features of this particular stuff? The development team owns the story planning and the high level estimates. And there are other people who are available, if you notice there, which I'm going to talk about: architects, user experience people, interdependencies, interfaces and all. So these are other people available within the team who are going to be helping you and me to understand what we need to do. Now let's talk about one very interesting concept, and on the Agile release train you will see there is one icon which is called RTE. RTE. It stands for Release Train Engineer. Release Train Engineer. Now do remember, within the release train, Agile release train, there will be multiple Scrum teams or Agile teams working. Each of the Agile team will have its own Scrum Master. So this RTE, that is a release train engineer, is like the chief Scrum Master for the entire concept. He is the chief Scrum Master for the entire concept. What is the role of this Agile release or this release train engineer? He is the guy who is facilitating release planning readiness and release planning meetings. So he is the guy who is completely facilitating how does the release planning happen within the system. And he is the guy who is managing, monitoring, coordinating and getting all the job done. He is also the interface to the release management team. If you see on the extreme left, you will see an icon of people which is called the release management team. So he's one of those guys who is also interfacing with the release management team. He's the guy who is facilitating the scrum of scrums. He's the guy who is ensuring collaboration within and across the trains. There could be multiple agile release trains working. So he's one of the guys who will coordinate across the agile release trains. He's the guy who is going to be escalating impediments and help manage risk. There are multiple risks that may be there at a program level. So he's one of the guys who is escalating the impediments and helping manage the risk. And he's one guy who is helping you to drive the program level continuous improvement. So these are the concepts, or these are the elements that as an agile release train engineer he does. So it's basically a full-time senior scrum master role, if I may use that particular word. It's a full-time role kind of a stuff that needs to be taken into account as you go forward in this particular system. So that was a little bit about the agile release engineer. Let me talk about some of the roles within the system that can help us understand a lot more better. Now you will also see in one of them, just next to the agile train engineer, release train engineer, there is one role which is called the system architect. Now what is the role of the system architect within the safe environment? Well, the role of the system architect is that he plays a unique role in helping the team efficiently implement the stakeholder needs. Now how does he do that? He understands the upcoming functional and the non-functional requirements. So as a system architect, he provides the architectural guidance to the team. He evaluates design alternatives and performs cost-benefit analysis that which approach to take, which will be more beneficial, which will be more scalable. He defines and splits the architectural ethics into features. He presents a technological vision during the release planning. Remember, there is one called the program vision and the next one is called the technology vision. So he's the guy who is presenting the technology vision during the release planning. And he works with the enterprise architects to help establish the complete architectural runway for the entire organization. So that's basically the job of the system architect, helping the organization, helping the team to do all of these as we talked about. Now, next to the system architect, there is one more guy which is called the UX. The UX guy is called as the user experience guy. What is his job? Now remember, if there are multiple teams working in the same agile release train, then every team can have its own standards, own ways of developing the GUI and other things. Now to avoid all of that, this is the place, or this is the guy who is going to help us. So you have the user experience guy who is providing us guidance for a consistent user experience. The experience needs to be consistent. So he's the guy who is helping the agile teams with increments of user interface design and user experience guidelines. He's validating the user experience via user testing. He's assisting in the user experience system testing. He shares the user guidelines, user experience guidelines and best practices across the teams. And he participates in program and team level planning and demos. So basically this user experience guy helps us to bring consistency of approach, consistency of UI, consistency of the GUI that we talk about across the various people within the organization and within the agile release train as we go out kind of a stuff. So that is something which is very interesting as we move on. Now if you also look at the extreme left and right at the bottom, there is one more team which is called the system team. Now what is the job of the system team? The job of the system team is to provide processes and tools to all the agile teams to integrate and evaluate all their products, all their development as early as possible and as often as possible. So basically the system development team or the system team will be tasked or will be, what I should use the word, will be, what I would say, responsible for development of the infrastructure and managing of the various environments. They will assist the team with test automation strategies and adoption of test automation. They will be providing full support for the system integration testing. They will perform end-to-end system and performance testing. And they will support the stage and support the system sprint demo. So these are the kind of jobs that the system team will do as a part of their entire curriculum or as a part of their entire approach. You also have one more role over here which is called the business owner. Just below the shared and the DevOps team, you have something called as a business owner. They also have a very important role to play within the system as we move forward. Let me also highlight and help you understand the job of the business owner. The business owner has the authority on how the program budget is allocated across the content and the design. So basically, if you are having a team, someone needs to be funding the team, and the funds will come from the business owner. They are the ones who participate in the release planning meetings. They achieve alignment of the priorities. They participate in inspect and adopt workshop, removing program level impediments. Now, do you remember we talk about retrospective? There are two levels of retrospective that we will do. One, we do it at an agile level, that is at a team level, and second is we do it at an agile release train level. So basically, these business owners will participate in inspect and adopt workshop, which is basically retrospectives at the agile release train. They are also engaged in other touch points through the entire concept, such as system demo, and they stay informed of the release management team on the scoping decisions. So that is basically the job of the business owner per se within this particular system that we are talking about. Moving on a little bit, it's important to understand develop on cadence and release on demand. Now the idea is that within the agile, because every agile team will be working on the same timeline, which means every 2 weeks. Now it may not be necessary that every agile team has the same level of velocity, but what they need to do is that they need to collaborate at regular intervals on defined milestones. So every 2 weeks we will integrate a product. Now whether we release it or not, that's a different story. So do remember, development occurs on a fixed cadence. Fixed cadence meaning the timelines have been defined, predefined, and all our development will synchronize, all our development will strategize and come together on a fixed date. Whereas the business decides when the value is to be released. What do I mean by value to be released? When do we make a release to the market? When do we make a release to the business? So that is where the business will decide when do I want to make a release. So release is always on demand and development is always on the cadence. So if you notice in this particular slide, you will see something like PI. PI is potentially shippable increment, and below that there are within two PIs there are small arrows or the lighter arrows, which are basically 2 weeks of sprint that is happening. And if you look on the second PI, there is a major release. On the third PI, there is a major release. So releases can be as and when required by the business, but our development is always synchronized on a cadence. So that is one of the important elements that we need to understand, because otherwise it will become very difficult for 5 to 12 teams all working together under a single umbrella. Life can become quite difficult. Finally, we come down to the portfolio level, which is the topmost level of our program. Now you will notice some very interesting things out here. At a portfolio level, the idea is that we are not thinking at a localized level, we are thinking more at a strategy level. Strategy means is, what do we do about our business? What are the strategic elements that we are going to talk about? This is the place where we are going to talk about, centralized strategy, decentralized execution. We are also talking of value description by business and architectural epics. Now, epics, as you all know, is a large kind of a concept that needs to be there. So there may be some business epics and there may be some architectural epics, all of that available, and all of that is all driven by a portfolio. Now, the portfolio could also have interesting elements, like if you notice in this, the portfolio also has an NFR, and the NFR is shown in the red line kind of a stuff. And up just on the left hand side, you see a Kanban there, which is showing you a funnel activity, which is trying to help you understand that every item, every new idea, every new thought process, every new strategic objective will all come through this funnel. It gets prioritized, and we have something like a Kanban limit. What do I mean by Kanban limit? That at any given point in time, how many things can we take into account and get the job done? So now you start noticing you have a portfolio level which identifies what is the kind of initiative that we are going to take. The portfolio moves into the program level, where you will have a program backlog which is controlled by the product management team. The product management team breaks that program. The program backlog is made up of features which is developed or which is owned by the product management team, which is then broken down into team level backlog, which is owned by the product owner. So if you actually notice, it's a three level scale that we are actually talking about. And this is what we are trying to highlight, that in Agile also we can do program and portfolio management. The job is the demand management that needs to be a continuous flow of value. At the very top of the pyramid, the business is only seeing, is there a value coming in? What is the strategic themes that we are talking about? And at a lower level, we are talking of decentralized rolling wave plan. We are talking of agile estimation and planning, self-managing agile release trains. These are the kind of elements that we talk. So basically, if you notice, we have a centralized control at the top and a decentralized control at the bottom. Decentralized control means Every team member, every team has its own ideas how they want to work under the general guidance of the system team and the architecture team and the user experience team. All of that, all of them come together to make some business sense out of it. I'm sure you know this guy called Peter Drucker, and what he tells is that the workers, that is the teams themselves, are best placed to make decisions on how to perform their work. So it is very important for us to start understanding and appreciating that it is, you need to give the team the autonomy of deciding how they want to work, what they want to work, and how do they want to work. Do remember, the knowledge workers are to manage themselves. They have to have the autonomy. They have to have the decision making power. And when you give them a decision making power, there will be a continuous innovation as a part of their work. Remember, in Agile, whenever you do some work, all the knowledge workers, all the development team of Agile has two basic responsibilities. The first responsibility is to do the job. The second responsibility is to identify how better can I do this job. It's a very interesting thought that you need to think about, that whenever you talk, and this is generally applicable to any kind of industry, any kind of a concept, that whenever you and I are doing a job, basically two things. One, that I have to do the job. Second is I have to continuously think, how can you do it better? And when you start thinking that continuously how you do it better, that is where the innovation actually comes in. So this is something that we need to understand and appreciate, that it's very difficult to start managing the knowledge workers, and to best manage them, leave them the decision making power of deciding how we want to do things. One of the important elements that we did not touch upon is the leadership part of it. Remember, in any organization, whenever you have a leadership available, the leadership at times, I would say, becomes a big important cog in the wheel. So it is important that we also train our management to think in lean process. There needs to be lean thinking. All their decisions should be based on this particular philosophy as they go forward, kind of stuff. We need to be helping the management understand that they need to embrace the Agile Manifesto, understand the Agile Manifesto, live the Agile Manifesto, take a larger system view. You cannot be taking a small Agile team view and saying, okay, I have 9 people working together in a team and I'll create a product. No, at times this may not happen, because today the products are becoming more and more complex, more and more people are getting involved, and we are exceeding the team size limit of 9 people kind of a stuff. So it becomes very important that we have multiple Agile release trains or multiple Agile teams all working on the same train, trying to embed these concepts and deliver solutions to the customer. That was a basic high-level value proposition for you guys and helping you to understand what is safe. Now, these are some of the things that you could do. You could go to Agile Framework, scaledagileFramework.com, get a lot of this data there. You can browse the framework. You can also become certified. When you become certified, you will be able to launch your own Agile release trains. Try to leverage the community, get help from scaleagile.com or places like scaledagilepartners.com. You can join the community at community.scaleagile.com kind of stuff. So there are a lot of things that you and I can do as we go forward as a part of the things. Now, one of the elements that I would like to highlight is that you can also go and get yourself certified as a safe Agilist. Do you have any questions that I can answer? Let's open up this entire session for Q&A. So I gave you a very brief outline and a very interesting element on SAFE. I just gave you an outline. It's not a detail. The detailed training is worth 2 days kind of a stuff on this entire SAFE. We'll be going to each of these at a very regular, at a very depth of the level. But in case you have some high level questions, I'll be more than happy answering them. I do see a few people trying to type some queries. Any questions? If some portion of the work needs to be done by the contractor, who will take responsibility? The responsibility has to be taken by the Agile, the release train engineer, and he will tell the contractor the kind of, let me also be very honest and frank with you, that the contractor may not be following Agile. It's okay. If the contractor is not following agile, but you have to set expectations with him that how does he want to, how should he work with you? What are the expectations? What are the deliverables? When he should participate in the meetings with us? How the meetings will be conducted? And if you're doing an orientation session for your team, it may be well worth the time to also invite a few of these contractor guys into your orientation so that they all understand how things are going to get worked on. Because if some portion of the work is going to be done by the contractor, then it is important that the contractor also understand some basic fundamentals and some basic principles, but the ultimate accountability will that be of the release trained engineer who happens to be the scrum of scrum masters kind of stuff. Any questions, please? And just to give you a little heads up, somewhere in June, I'm going to be conducting a different kind of a webinar, that is how to conduct performance appraisals for an agile team. It's going to be an interesting webinar. Watch out that these elements may be coming in. I have a follow-up question. That means that the contract team also needs to be aware of contracting requirements and payment options. Yes, you need to, because at the end of the day, but what I'm trying to help you understand is you need to keep the operational part separate and the payment and other part separate. Remember, don't mix them together. One is a business call and one is an operational call. So we have to keep them separate. But yes, I do agree that there will be elements to discuss about the payment options and other things. But do remember, when you are talking in Agile, these two things are very separate and you have to deal with them at a separate level. A lot of times we do confuse between the financial and the business decision and the operational decision. Agile or implementing things within the Agile is more an operational level, not a business call. And let me be very honest with you, if you only have a couple of teams, then I don't think so that you should be implementing the SAFe as a framework. You could be just using the different concept of scaling up Agile, which I spoke in the last webinar, which was somewhere on the 4th of March, if I'm not wrong. So we spoke on the 4th of March how to implement scaling Agile without using SAFe. Today's webinar was SAFe. Basically, you know, there is a question by Pawan who says, as per my understanding, SAFe can be applied only in product development. It can be service-based company. Please correct me. Basically, I have to highlight that the Agile was actually created for product development only. That was the basic origin of Agile, but it is very interesting that as of today we have started implementing Agile in a lot of other areas and other industries and elements. But if you ask me honestly, you know, things like maintenance kind of a project, things like defect fixes kind of a project, I believe Kanban is a lot more better suited approach as compared to Agile kind of a stuff. I would typically use Kanban in those kind of an areas. But Pawan, your statement is correct, that not only SAFe but entire Agile was developed from the product development point of view. But today in the market, today in the industry, we have started adopting Agile for service-based industries also. Any other questions? Yes, Vasant, you have a very interesting question. Can it be used for a SAP kind of projects? Absolutely, because in a SAP what happens is you have multiple modules, each of the module could be one agile team and you could be having an overarching architecture and all that kind of stuff. Yes, in SAFe can be an interesting way of doing development in a SAP kind of a project. I would say specifically if there are multiple modules and within multiple modules we are doing multiple things kind of stuff, then yes, SAFe can be applied and then you can, because now do again remember, one is doing the implementation and second is go live. We'll keep go live a little separately out, but when you're doing development, I would rather do the development in small increments, integrate all the small increments together of various modules, of various elements, and keep on demonstrating it to my customer. At one point in time when the customer is happy and we are more than happy, more than ready kind of a stuff, we can call for release and then create some kind of a go live as a concept. So can SAFe be applied for SAP? The answer is yes. But I would strongly request and recommend that you guys should go in and attend a Safe Agilist class and get yourself certified as a Safe Agilist. You will get more value out of it as we go forward. I would strongly also advise you to go to skilledagileframework.com. You will have tons and tons of data. And just to give you a little bit of an insight out here, I'm just going a little bit out here, which is, yeah, this big picture that you see, this is freely downloadable from the skilledagileframework.com. There are downloads available. You can go and freely download and take it forward kind of stuff. So just to help you re-understand things, at the central level, you have the Agile release train, which talks everything in terms of features, and features are a part of the program backlog. Whereas when you talk at the bottom, that is where our normal Agile teams are. The Agile teams are talking in terms of stories, and stories are a part of your team backlog. And when you talk at the top, you have the portfolio level things coming in, where there are things at a broader level, bigger than the feature, which are epics kind of stuff. And within the epics, you have an epic owner, which, there is a Kanban kind of a concept that comes in and all that, so that you strategize and you know how to prioritize things and which one to take. And based on that, you can run multiple Agile release trains, which then have budgets been allocated, and then you run the program, and below the program, you have the various teams who work it. Guys, this particular webinar is getting recorded, so in case you require a copy or the link of this webinar, you can request QAI, to whom you send a request to participate, and they will be more than happy to give you a link on this platform. Any questions that I can answer, please? According to me and according to my view, going forward, maybe a couple of years down the line, you could be watching Skilled Agile Framework as becoming the de facto standard in the industry, because do remember, Agile was created with a very different concept, and in the real life, in the real industry, in the practical life, you and I are not able to follow the Agile in the concept in which it was created, because we have geographically distant team, the customer doesn't sit with us, there are multiple teams, part of the team in Hyderabad and part of the team in Pune and part of the team in Mumbai and so on and so forth kind of a stuff. You have too many things to get done, get the job done kind of a stuff. So that is something that you need to take care of, and that is where I believe SAFe can become quite an interesting element as we take forward. Vasant, what is the email ID we could request for the recording? Well, I believe you would have sent a request to attend this webinar. I believe you can send your email on that same email. You can respond and say, we would like to get the recording done or the recording available. So a link will be sent across to you. You would have registered this webinar through a particular email ID. Well, when can SAFe become unsafe? Well, anything can become unsafe if you don't follow the normal disciplines of the system. Then anything can become unsafe for me. It's very basic that there are few rules that you and I need to follow. See, it's very interesting for us to understand. When we started our entire development, ages ago, 20, 30, 40 years ago, we all did waterfall approach. Waterfall had few problems, so Agile came into picture. Now, Agile is having few problems specifically because in the Indian context, you have the onshore offsite kind of an engagement model. Agile really doesn't work in an onshore offsite because it was not created for that. So now SAFe has come out. I'm sure the world will keep on changing and SAFe will get into a different level. Now, I didn't talk much about it, but if you notice on this big picture, there is one very interesting, at the next door to the UX, there is an icon that is shown as DevOps. Now, according to me, the next future after SAFe will be DevOps, development and operations together. And the basic idea is that if you don't follow the rules of the game, anything which is safe can become unsafe. It's very simple. If you're driving, you don't wear your seat belts, it's an unsafe way of doing your job. Risk is always there. Alright guys. Yeah, there is a last question coming in, please. Okay, talking about metrics, there are quite a bit of metrics that are possible into the Agile framework as we are talking. Just let me give a thought on that. There are quite a bit of metrics that can be done. Just give me a minute and I'll talk about it. Just a minute. I'm trying to search some of my notes where I had actually written the various matrix that are feasible or could be possible using this entire concept. See, some of the matrix that you can do at a program level is what is the program velocity. Now we are not talking of a team velocity, we are talking of a program velocity. So all teams combined together, what are we producing? You can talk about release predictability measure. How much did we plan? How much did we release? You can also have number of features planned versus number of features accepted. You can have number of architectural features, number of stories planned, accepted. On the quality, you can have number of open defects, total number of percentage of test cases automated, number of NFR test cases that have been automated, the unit test coverage that we have done. So these are some of the other, what I should say, metrics that may be feasible, possible for you to take care of as you go forward in the system. There are a lot of other metrics also possible, and let me do one thing. I'm going to give you my email ID out here, and possibly you can drop me an email on that, and I'll be more than happy to respond with a greater detail as I go forward. So you can respond me to this particular email ID, and I'll give you a lot of other data points which are the traditional metrics of a SAFe that one could have done as a part of our entire approach. Any other questions that I can answer? Any questions that I can answer? Well, there is a SAFe training that has been planned in Delhi on 16th and 17th of May. But if there is quite a bit of demand, we normally do one training per quarter. I don't know about Bangalore, Chaudhary. You can write me an email and I'll ensure that my relevant business teams get to know about this and they will get in touch with you for the SAFe stuff. Pawan, in Pune, currently there is no goal to conduct a training in Pune as of today, at least. I should be honest with you on that. Mumbai, yes, there could be. We could plan something out here. Hyderabad, Chennai also no right now. So basically, there are three areas that we normally do a lot of trainings: Mumbai, Delhi, and Bangalore. So these are the areas where we could be. But in case we have quite a bit of participants coming in from other areas, I believe QAI will be more than happy to come down at a particular area and do the training for you guys at that particular location. But currently, I do not see that happening as I go forward. Any questions, guys? Alright, so if there are no questions, so that's all from me for now. So bye for now. Just to remind you that I will be doing a webinar on performance management, performance appraisals somewhere in June. It would be either 2nd of June or 9th of June. The date is not yet finalized. So take care of that and I'll see you very soon. Bye bye. Take care.